Hi, I'm Daniela and this is Jocelyn. Thanks for coming back to our channel.
Today we're going to break down the costs associated with each type of artificial insemination, including IVF, IUI, and ICI. Specifically, we'll be looking at medications needed, monitoring and blood work, sperm samples, and any other costs that may be associated that you haven't even thought of. Our hope is to give you the Lesbi-Honest truth about the costs associated with artificial insemination.
Also, we're going to share with you where we are in our journey at the end of the video, so be sure to stay tuned. Before getting into the nitty-gritty breakdown of how much of your life savings you're going to be spending on creating a child, it's important to disclaim that some states have laws that say health insurance providers must pay for some portion of infertility treatment, while other states do not have any laws at all.
An advantageous first step would be getting in touch with your insurance provider if you have one, to get specific information on what they're willing to cover, if anything at all. I highly recommend getting this information in writing if you can, even if it's just an email. We had the unfortunate event of being told over the phone that something was covered, only to find out after we started the process that it actually wasn't. And then we had to scramble around and figure out a new plan.
For the purpose of this video, we're going to give you a cost breakdown without insurance involved. That way you can get a good baseline of the costs that you're looking at. It's also important to note that we're on the East Coast of the United States, so prices may change depending on where you're geographically located.
As Daniela pointed out, these estimates are just that, an estimate. Every person who goes through this process will have different factors that weigh into the total cost of their ultimate procedure. So just keep that in mind, that these are all just estimates to give you a ballpark to help you budget. We found this information from a few different places, and I'll make sure to link that in the description below so you can do your own research as well. With that being said, let's look at the first type of artificial insemination. The first type of AI we're going to look at is IVF, or in vitro fertilization.
During this process, both the sperm and the egg are fertilized outside of the woman's body and then placed into the uterus to hopefully grow a baby. Just like in that scene in Friends when you see Phoebe talking to the petri dish.
This process is the most extensive and expensive form of artificial insemination and can be used for a number of different reasons. During this process, oral medication as well as injected hormones are given, with lots of monitoring throughout the cycle along the way.
In order to figure out how much an IVF cycle would cost, we had to take into consideration the cost of medications, blood work and monitoring, and a lot of additional factors that come along with this procedure, including the cost of sperm, which is not usually included in the cost of procedure and can cost anywhere between $200 to $3,000, depending on what type of sperm you choose. For more information on how to find a sperm donor, you can check out the link above.
From what I could find researching, the medication associated with the IVF procedure will cost anywhere between $1,500 and $5,000 per cycle. The monitoring and blood work can cost anywhere between $500 and $2,000 per cycle. The IVF procedure itself will run between $10,000 and $15,000 per cycle. The sperm donation, as Daniela mentioned, can cost anywhere between $200 and $3,000. And the additional costs that may be associated if genetic testing were needed to be done can run anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000.
This brings the grand total of an IVF cycle between $12,000 and $30,000.
With the average cost about $19,000.
This might seem like a pretty big range, but it's important to note that with a procedure like IVF, it's oftentimes tailored to a specific person's needs.
If you're being told that IVF is the best chance of pregnancy, but you feel that the cost is just too far out of reach, you're not alone. Actually, only 1 in 4 women who need IVF go through with it because of the financial burden associated.
Luckily, some clinics have set up programs where they have discounted rates, financial aid, frozen embryo transfers, and many other things that can help offset the cost of IVF. Our clinic told us that the procedure alone for IVF would run us about $11,000. So when you consider the cost of sperm, medication, additional testing, we're looking at about $13,000 minimum for IVF treatment without insurance, because we don't have insurance that covers IVF.
Through my research, I also found another procedure called mini IVF, which uses less intense medication and a little less monitoring. This will cut back on the costs. From what I found, it's about $5,000 per cycle, but I'm not too familiar with this process myself.
But what if IVF isn't for you?
Maybe you're thinking that you don't want to go this route. What other option do you have available to you? Now let's take a look at artificial insemination through IUI.
Intrauterine insemination.
During this relatively quick procedure, after timing ovulation just right, the sperm is injected through the cervix to meet the already descending egg. Although IUI is a little less intensive, it also does require medication and monitoring along the way.
So how much will IUI cost you? Let's take a look at the cost breakdown. Medication, if needed, can run you anywhere from
$100 to $2,000.
Monitoring and blood work can be anywhere between
$100 and $1,000.
In-office insemination can cost anywhere from
$150 to $400. Some clinics will inseminate more than once per cycle with IUI.
Frozen sperm can cost anywhere between $200 and $3,000.
Per vial, with shipping.
Given the personalized variables just explained, one cycle of IUI can cost anywhere between just under $1,000 to $8,000.
With the average being about $4,000. Comparing the two types of artificial insemination so far, the main differences between IUI and IVF is that with IVF, the eggs need to be retrieved and fertilized outside of the body, where with IUI, the sperm sample is just inserted to meet the egg.
The last type of artificial insemination we're going to look at today is ICI, or intracervical insemination. This process most closely resembles natural insemination. It's also most commonly known as the turkey baster method, even though a syringe is usually used.
As the least intrusive form of artificial insemination, ICI is oftentimes done with no medication and even performed at home. There is minimal blood work and monitoring done by a clinic. Instead, a person usually just monitors their own ovulation cycle.
That's where a period tracker can come in handy. Although medication and extensive blood work aren't usually given for this procedure, there are additional costs that need to be considered with ICI. If you are attempting this procedure with a clinic, the procedure itself will cost anywhere between $200 and $400 per cycle. If choosing to do this process at home, you'll need to purchase a syringe, and we also recommend a menstrual disc or cup to keep the sample close to the cervix. This will cost you around or under $100. Then we also have to consider the price of the sperm, which can be anywhere between $200 and $3,000. So the average cost of ICI at home can range anywhere between $250 and $3,500, with the average cost being around $600.
For more information on using a menstrual disc when trying to conceive, check out the link above. As you can see, there is a huge price difference between the three types of artificial insemination that we mentioned, and that's why we wanted to make this video for you. Not only to break down the costs associated with each one, but the things that go into each procedure.
Our goal is to help you make the most confident decision for your growing family. So to recap, IVF average cost is about $19,000. IUI's average cost about $4,000, and ICI is around $600. But we also recognize that a lot more than finances go into making this decision. Taking a look at this chart our fertility specialist gave us may also help in your decision. It's a little blurry, but as you can see, depending on your age and the type of procedure, success rates fluctuate drastically.
As time goes on and medical technologies advance, there are more and more ways to get pregnant.
Our best advice for you is to just get familiar with the different processes out there so that you can reach out to a healthcare professional and decide what works best for you.
Another great tip to help you get started on your trying to conceive journey is to start by tracking your ovulation. No matter which type of insemination you choose, tracking your ovulation is going to be a key tool used in all of those types.
For more information on how to track your ovulation, check out the link above.
In other news, we wanted to give a shout out to one of our first fans, Laura K. Croft. She actually recommended us getting a new mic, which we did, and we've implemented it in this video.
We also added a list of our resources that we used to create this video in the description, so make sure you check those out as well.
Now moving on to where we are in our cycle. As promised, we said we would share with everyone where we are in our journey.
To date, we tried 1 attempt at IUI so far.
And we're not pregnant.
No, fortunately we're not.
Luckily, my levels looked good and I was able to start another cycle of IUI. We'll be keeping you updated on IUI number 2.
Although we were, of course, disappointed that our first attempt at IUI was unsuccessful, we knew that the success rate was only about 15 to 20%, so we're trying to stay hopeful, and we look forward to our next round of IUI.
Please don't forget to like and subscribe to follow along with our journey.
See you soon.